Johnson, host of All Things Real Estate. And as I promised you last week, I am presenting today one of my good friends. She's more like a sister. She is also an experienced loan officer here in the Mid-South. And as I stated at the beginning of this season, I wanted to bring you real people from our communities who would be able to answer, simple questions and even some of the more complex questions we may have when in regards to our real estate transactions. And what better place to start than by talking with the loan officer, because we can't buy a house if we don't have money. And we realize from, history, just historical things, and there are other barriers that keep us from, reaching out to a loan officer. A lot of times we don't really know what questions to ask. We don't know how they can help us to navigate the process, specifically what their role is in that. And we can get confused with that with every part of the transaction. We also need to understand what a closing attorney does. We need to understand what your real estate professional should be doing for you, how those people work together, and how all of their roles are equally important in making sure that you realize your dream of home ownership. And so, as I told you guys last week, across the country we have experienced a decrease in our home ownership levels in the African American or Black community. And I have a personal vested interest, as does Ms. Teresa here, in making sure that we can turn that statistic around. Because as time goes on, as our community talks more about home ownership and wealth building and legacy passing, we need to be able to, help our kids understand that home ownership is really the cornerstone to that, and we need to always, be sure that we are putting people in the place where our kids can access them, and they have that same goal at heart. Not to say that they can't get that anywhere, but it's important to have someone who understands intricately, the challenges that, we face as individuals in our communities, and they have usually special things that they can do to overcome those because they understand. And so that is why I thought, who better to bring on first than my good friend Teresa here, who has been around real estate for quite a long time. We actually share membership and leadership responsibilities in a very important organization that has been fervently teaching home ownership and financial literacy to our community for a long time. There's a lot of work that goes into that. You guys have no idea. And so because she has been so instrumental in doing that work, I think it has added to her desire to want to help the community, because like I said, when you're in a space like that, you get to hear things that you don't normally hear, and then you have to help those people solve the problems. And not everybody is blessed to be in a space like that.
That's right. That's right.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Teresa Small.
Thank you so much for
Tell us,
having me.
no problem. Tell us where you work,
Okay.
where you do your lending business,
Okay.
and how you got started.
So I am currently with Independent Bank Mortgage. I'm Vice President, Mortgage Loan Originator. I've been with Independent Bank for 10 years now. But my banking career started in 1999. So believe it or not, before it was home ownership, it was helping clients just understanding banking. Sometimes banking and home ownership and lending, they all work hand in hand. So I had the opportunity to learn the retail side of banking, and then I came over to the mortgage side of banking. My biggest passion with mortgage banking is the education piece, because I realized coming into this that if a buyer doesn't understand how to obtain a mortgage loan, it makes it even more difficult in the home buying process.
Right.
So this is, and as you mentioned, the organization that we're a part of, financial literacy is the absolute key. So I look forward to more years of being a mortgage banker and helping more homeowners understand how to make their best decision in this transaction.
I can tell you this, one of the things that I think a loan officer definitely needs is patience. And she is like the epitome of, I can be patient.
I can. You have to be.
Calm.
You have to be.
She actually helped me with a client that, I mean, I had been working with this guy for a couple of years. He was a fun customer. You know, don't get me wrong. He just was a guy who knew exactly what he wanted.
Yes, he did.
He was a person who would do his own research, and he was very sensitive to how he was being handled by previous loan officers, which I had no help in helping him find. He found those people, and then he told me he didn't like them, and then I introduced him. So he's ready. He already has his person that he's going to come back to, because this is the person who was patient with him, who answered his questions, who was fast and efficient, responsive, all of those things.
Yeah, patience is definitely a big thing, and you have to meet a buyer where they are.
Right.
You know, everybody is going to have different circumstances, and I help them to understand there's a solution to all of it.
Right.
So we just have to take time and fill out it and determine what that solution is.
Right. So what are some of the most common challenges that you see that buyers have in our community? And I just mean at large, like no matter who it is, like
Gotcha.
What are some of the most common things they have to deal with?
I know you're going to think that I'm going to say credit is one of the most common, but it's not. It's actually not. It's being able to obtain documentation.
Wow.
So when you're applying for a home loan, you've got to provide things such as income documents, asset documents, and that is sometimes the biggest challenge is, how do I get this? Where do I get it from? How do I send it to you?
Right.
And that can put a lot of stress on the first-time home buyer that already has these millions of challenges going on in their mind. So believe it or not, in my consultation, I'm also helping you trying to figure out the best way to provide documentation to me, and then the right documentation.
Right, because there's date sensitivities and things of that nature that have to be accounted for. We can't turn in that check stub from 2 years ago.
No, and everything can't be taking a picture and texting to me.
Exactly.
Some things have to be emailed or faxed in a proper format. So
let me ask you this: is it common that people because I've seen this quite a bit in my transactions where people are like, I already turned that in.
Yeah.
But you know, we all know that as time lapses, if like for example, you got pre-approved here in June 1st, and you didn't find the home that you wanted until July 15th.
Absolutely.
So in a case like that, would it be typical that someone may need to resubmit documentation?
Absolutely. Because when we took that snapshot in June, I probably got your pay stubs for May, right?
Exactly.
I did your last 30-day pay stubs. So if you don't get under contract until July or August, that means I need June's pay stubs. You may have given me April's bank statement. Well, I need your last 2 months, so now I need you to add on to May. So it's very common that what you start with in the consultation, we may have to continue to add on to that depending on how much time has gone by. Absolutely.
What would you say to someone who, I am an avid believer that, especially for a first-time home buyer, that those people seek out a local lender. We have lots of, online lending pre-approval options available.
Correct.
I do want to stress one thing. I'm so happy you're here so that you can quantify this for me. I get people all the time who say I'm pre-approved, but a pre-approval does not make you qualified.
None of it does, Kay. None of it does.
Thank you.
None of it does. What you want is a loan commitment, and a loan commitment cannot happen until you have a contract in hand and you are officially applying for a loan. So whether you are pre-approved, pre-qualified, you spoke with 2 or 3 different lenders, it is still not a loan commitment.
It is not.
It is not a loan commitment. Now, what we do in those stages of the process, we make sure to understand what terms and conditions you would have to be prepared to provide when it is time to get that loan commitment.
Right.
So whether it's understanding that we need to verify your rental pay history, right?
Right.
That's a condition that we know that when you apply for that loan, that's going to be a condition of that loan commitment.
So that really the loan or the pre-approval or pre-qual, whatever
However you
call
want to say it.
It is basically a notice to the client or customer that says, hey, you can move to this step.
Absolutely.
Once you've completed or satisfied these, what I like to call contingencies.
Or once you know that you can satisfy those contingencies. Just like when you get a credit card offer in the mail, they're worded differently. Some say you are invited to apply. They don't know anything about you. Some of them say you are pre-qualified to apply. You have a higher chance of getting approved because they've done some type of information search on you. So the same thing holds true with the mortgage. When you're speaking with the loan officer, that pre-qualification or pre-approval, as Kay mentioned, and I like how you are now ready to move to that next step.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and so I find myself having to explain that multiple times throughout a transaction as a broker, because I have agents who will say, no, you're ready, and then something happens and that person's like, I want to talk to your broker, and then I'm the one who's having to say, like that is just the steps that you need to take to get to this point. It doesn't guarantee that nothing. It's just that we promise we'll work with you.
Exactly.
So that's the first thing, guys. And one of the other reasons why I'm an advocate for, especially first-time home buyers, purchasing or using a local lender is because I have found that lots of times out-of-state lenders or lenders who are not local, they do not have access to the same type of programming, for down payment assistance as the local lenders would have. And then there's other little nuance things that could be delayed too. So like for example, a lot of times you hear advertisements and things, that say, 100%. You get 100% financing. We know that's the case with USDA, for example. And most people get, like, I want to use USDA because they'll just sit and advertise.
Exactly.
But there are stipulations.
Absolutely.
Obviously. And is it typical for people who may qualify for a 100% financing to also believe that they don't have closing costs? Are those things
that... and again, that's where understanding your terms and conditions, because financing and closing costs are 2 different things, right? So when we talk about the program is breaking down what your minimum investment is. And many times, depending on the program, for example, FHA could be 3.5%. USDA could be no down payment, but the closing costs are the services and expenses required to do the loan. So that is absolutely, even a veteran, right? You have 100% financing for veterans, but it doesn't exclude the closing costs, the expenses, and the things that are associated with actually creating that new loan. And sometimes buyers still have to plan for that, because it's not always guaranteed, right, that the seller is going to offer concession in order to pay for those closing costs.
That's right. That's exactly where I was hoping that you would go, is that, that is also an assumption. And sometimes lenders, especially those who are not local and who don't understand the market, may say, oh, that's what sellers are doing.
Absolutely.
Every homeowner is different, just like every buyer is different, and we need to treat those people as individuals.
Absolutely.
Like you need to
Absolutely.
go into the situation prepared to
Prepared.
purchase
That's
your
the right
home
word.
no matter what.
That is, and I always use the term a properly prepared buyer is prepared for anything.
Prepared
So
for anything.
if we know that closing cost is $10,000, we've got to be prepared to have that $10,000 in the event the seller does not offer that concession.
Right.
So absolutely, absolutely.
So let's just talk about the buyer who may be deflated for
Okay.
one or two reasons.
Okay.
We can lump them all up together.
Okay.
But so the buyer who isn't approved or pre-approved for the amount that they feel like they should be,
Okay.
and the person who may be declined altogether. There's a myriad of reasons. Like we could probably spend another 5 hours or so talking about all the reasons.
It's a list of them.
Yes, that a person could be. So I don't really want to go into that. But what I do want to say is, do you think it's important for a lender to believe that, okay, yes, you didn't get the amount that you wanted to get, or you didn't make it this time, but where there is a will, there is a way.
Absolutely.
So providing to the client some options
Absolutely.
where they may be able to come back at a later date.
Absolutely.
Do you think that we?
Oh my gosh, that's the key. You know, it's nothing worse than a loan officer telling a buyer you can't qualify,
Right.
without giving you reasons or scenarios to help you turn that picture around. Because remember, we're just taking a snapshot. This
Right.
is not the tell-all, be-all of your story.
Right.
We've just taken a snapshot of your credit, your income for the last 30 days, and where you may be in your assets, right? So let's talk about credit. If I have a buyer, and I've just had a buyer, and she was so disappointed during that call, but I talked to her a little bit more to help her understand, I know you're disappointed because you thought it could happen in this time. But if you allow this period of time to take place and do steps A, B, and C, it's going to make a difference.
Right.
And she finally understood that.
Right.
And sometimes time is the key, Kay. You know, you may want to buy your home by the end of the summer. But based on our consultation, it may take 9 or 12 months.
Right.
And that may be the time we need to recover from whatever challenges we had during that snapshot.
Right.
Income. You may not have the income that you need to have the capacity to qualify for the home that you want.
Right.
We can figure out different scenarios, and that's what I love doing. You know, how do we increase your income? How do we decrease your current debt obligations in order to get you into that price range you're looking for?
Right.
And it's just about creating the right scenario.
Right. So I feel like home buyers and sellers have an obligation. I feel like they should feel the same level of obligation that, say, a criminal would feel to a lawyer.
Okay.
You tell me whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Best things,
to get
the worst
me out of
things.
this thing. That's
Yes.
absolutely right.
Just so you guys know, we have an obligation to keep your information confidential.
Absolutely.
Even though Teresa and I know each other and we have like a years long history, she is not calling me saying, girl, let me tell you.
No, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare.
That is,
absolutely.
so that is, and the truth is going to come out anyway.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
And so a lot of times people get pre-approvals just because they enter information onto a website.
Computer, correct.
And a lot of things are automated. Like they were doing that before we got to this stage with AI, obviously.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
that's really what it is.
Absolutely.
And then you have to come back and show the loan officer that what you put on that initial application is right. They have to have things that match. There are federal laws that govern that, state and local laws that govern them just the same way they govern us as real estate agents and brokers. And if we don't want to be behind some bars
or pay some fines, yes.
we have to do
We
things
do,
the right
we do.
way.
And that's why that pre-qualification, pre-approval process is so essential.
Mhm.
I tell a buyer, nothing is right or wrong at this
Mhm.
point. I'm going to tell you what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. So the more information you feed me, the more I can put it into a nice little dinner plate and we can put it together.
Exactly.
So,
And one other thing I wanted to touch on, and so let me just do this. she is such a wealth of information. Miss Teresa is, and like I said, we are members of an organization that teaches this on a more in-depth level. So I am going to have in the credits information about Miss Teresa, and then she will help us maybe in a different episode get a list of dates for these homebuyer education classes that she teaches. She helps to teach. Sometimes I'm a part of them, but they are usually a few hours long or a couple of hours at least, and they have a specific topic usually that they're speaking about. So this is just my way of introducing Miss Teresa to you guys so that you can do a follow-up at the end and contact her yourself, share all your personals with her, and then let her see where she can take you.
Let's figure it out.
I can tell you this, I have sent several people to her, and some of them weren't, I mean, not because of her, but because of them, they weren't able to move forward. But the one thing that they all told me was, well, she said if I did this, then I can get here. And that's the kind of person that I would want to be with if I was, especially if I didn't know the process, if I had never purchased a house. I want someone to tell me, you know, these are the steps that you need to take to get to where you want to get.
Absolutely.
And that brings me to this last thing that I think we have enough time, to discuss.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk about with you the differences between credit counseling and credit repair.
Okay.
So usually, I mean, I'll say what I think, and then you just tell me if you believe the same. So I believe that in a lot of cases, credit repair is a service that people pay for. And you pay for this service, and what you're really paying for is for them to remove things, usually.
So they say.
Right, from your credit, in order to help boost your credit score so that you can get to whatever phase of financial excellency, I should say, that you want.
So they say.
Okay, and then we have credit counseling, which is free of charge.
In most cases.
In most cases, and it is something where you go and actually learn the steps.
Keyword.
To maintain a positive credit.
Absolutely.
Rating, score, where you can clean up things that may have, you know, been a problem for you in the past that you know are hindering you now, that you're in a different place. And those things that could take a little bit longer because you're having to go and learn how to do the work.
Exactly.
But once you do it, it's much more gratifying.
Absolutely.
Because as I understand from what I read, people who go through credit counseling are able to better maintain that new and improved credit over the person who necessarily goes to credit repair.
Correct.
So, what is your take on that?
Okay.
And do you think that kind of service, I'm going to say credit counseling, because you know, from my experience, that's been the better option over and above the credit repair. But do you think that do you think that is something that a loan officer should recommend, or is that something that agent should recommend if you know the buyer is being totally upfront? Like someone comes and says, hey, you know, I filed bankruptcy last year. You know, but I want to buy a house. And I want to buy it tomorrow. Like,
I think in any scenario, whether they filed bankruptcy last year, they've had a foreclosure a few years ago. I've just talked to a customer who's in the process of a judgment. When I say we have a solution for every loan program that your loan officer goes over with you, we already know the condition for that circumstance. And that's all it is. It's a circumstance or an event that happened. So even if after our consultation we give you information to talk to a credit counselor, you still want to have that consultation to know specifically to qualify for a mortgage, how does this affect me? So if you just had a bankruptcy, we may tell you you need to wait 12 to 24 months. Now you have a time frame.
right.
And now we've got to understand, what do I do in that time frame so when I come back, I am properly prepared for you. So it doesn't matter the event. It does not matter the event that you're going through. Still sit down and have a conversation with the subject matter expert, and that would be me.
Yes,
That would
the
be
real
me.
estate
They
agent
don't
is
know.
not the
They're
subject
gonna
matter
call
expert.
me.
Right.
They're
We
gonna
are
call
not,
me.
We are not the subject matter
No,
expert when it
no.
comes to finance. And now, if
No.
you want to know if you probably gonna have to replace your roof, that's not us either.
Absolutely. And I stay in my own lane. Like
Yes.
I can't tell you if this 4-bedroom house is I don't know.
Right. If it's within the last paint was or
Absolutely,
whatever.
I don't know
Right.
that. But what I do know is how to help you get your loan.
And that's the over and above anything else. I strongly suggest people go to a loan officer first. Figure out what you need to do to get into the home.
Absolutely.
Figure out what you can afford before you start looking, because the eye buys.
Oh my God.
And then your
Yes,
heart
it-
suffers
and the
when the
heart-
eyes can't
oh,
have what
I
it's
have
on.
seen so many hearts suffering because, I had a buyer and they wanted their payment to stay around $1,200 or $1,300 a month. Why are they looking at a $290,000
Right.
home? It's not going to work together
Right.
that way. So we help bring reality to what you're wanting to buy.
I love that, bringing it to
We've
reality.
got to bring it to reality, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you want $1,200, I'm going to tell you what $1,200 is in the price range. Numbers don't lie.
Right.
You can read a verse, and I can interpret it one way,
Right.
and you can interpret, but numbers, they don't
Right.
lie. They don't lie.
And one other thing I would suggest is to people is to when your loan officer is telling you, hey, you need to be at this amount
Mhm.
in order to maintain your current lifestyle,
Mhm.
that they're trying to make you not be house rich and cash poor.
Absolutely.
So you really should follow that. And when you're looking at a house as a real estate professional, I can tell you, I always try to help people to see the potential for what it could be.
It could be. Absolutely.
You know, how can you make this be all these things that you want over here?
Absolutely.
And you know, a lot of times you can save money like that. A lot of times we want things that really don't add value to the property, and so you're paying for all these upgrades that don't really matter in the end. And so that's where your real estate professional comes in, is that we're helping you to identify those things within the property. But the money part, we are not experts. If you have an agent that's telling you what your loan officer should and could be doing, if the loan officer is communicating with you and giving you things and telling you things in layman's terms where you can understand, there is no reason for your real estate professional to even be contacting your loan officer. Just to be honest.
And I want to go back to the credit repair versus the credit counseling. So what I have seen in my experience, and I think you said it, when someone does credit counseling, they are so in tune to what needed to be done to resolve a debt, because many times it's just a conversation with the creditor.
It is.
And I know it feels like it's a hard conversation, but I think about it like this. They've got nothing from you so far.
Exactly.
So for you to reach out and have a conversation with them, you would be amazed on how they can work something out with you. And that's from a charged off account to a collection
almost
account.
anything. So that's great answer.
I try to give good answers.
Yes, you did. You gave a great answer, and like I wouldn't even never done it because I'm not alone.
That's right.
Yeah.